Good morning. My name's Andrew Ainslie. I'm an assistant professor here at the Anderson School in marketing, and today I want to introduce you to one of our PhD students, Garrett Sonio. Garrett's been working with me for a while and had in fact previously been working in the car industry and has some great data that he's been using to try to analyze what or where brand valuations come from for cars and what exactly a brand value is for a car. So Garrett, why don't you tell us a bit about it?
Sure. Well, what we were primarily interested in doing with this work was trying to evaluate how consumers place valuations on more subjective attributes like brands. Companies obviously spend a tremendous amount of advertising money to shape the perceptions of the products that they sell to consumers. And it's an interesting question about whether or not those perceptions influence how people choose, in our case, choose among cars. And so we were trying to take a look at our data and come up with a way to measure how people value these subjective perceptions.
But how does that differ from something like conjoint analysis, which has been around for a long time? So why don't you tell us a bit about how your work built on what was already there with conjoint analysis?
Sure. The work actually uses conjoint analysis. So it's kind of trying to add another level or another layer of understanding to conjoint analysis. Conjoint's been around for a long time, and the nuts and bolts of it is basically you take something like a computer or a car, and you break it down into attributes. So if we're talking about computers, maybe we're talking about RAM and processor speed. If we're talking about cars, we may be talking about engine horsepower, audio equipment, and importantly for a car, you're talking about the brand that the car carries. So for example, a Volkswagen or a Honda Accord. And conjoint has done conjoint studies often include brand as an attribute. So you describe the product as part of the brand. But these studies typically haven't tried to decompose what's in the brand weight. And that's what we're really trying to do. We're trying to say something a little bit more precise about what it is in the weight that people have for the brands.
So tell us a bit about that. What exactly did you find brand was for these cars, and what went into that, and what came out of your study?
Sure. So a unique aspect of our data was in addition to information on the choices that people made from competing sets of cars, we had for the same set of people ratings on subjective perceptions about the parent brands of these cars. And when I use the word parent brand, I mean Honda or Volkswagen. And then also what they thought about the exterior styling of the cars. Did they think they were sporty? Did they think they were prestigious, for example?
That would be more a model, like
so,
an Accord.
Sure, that applies more to the model, like the Accord or like the Passat, for example. So what we were able to do was to build a link between the weights that people put on the brands themselves and these subjective perceptions. And what we were able to find was that there is a very significant mapping from these perceptions back to these brand weights.
Okay. Now, an interesting technical aspect of what Garrett does is that it turns out that actually putting a dollar value on something like how stylish you think a car is a very difficult thing to do. So one of the key parts of Garrett's work was trying to get some dollar valuation on these components. And tell us why that's important for, say, a car manufacturer.
Well, one reason it's important is what I alluded to at the beginning of our chat here. Car companies spend a tremendous amount of money on television advertising and other forms of advertising. Right. And if the company is trying to conduct any kind of return on investment analysis, it's important to know what the dollar benefit of that expenditure is. One dollar or one potential dollar benefit is how much people are willing to pay, or the dollar value that these perceptions created by the advertisements are worth.
So you're able to tell not only why people might pay a little more for something like a Toyota or a Honda, but also where that comes from. So you can actually put a dollar value on something like style.
Yes, the technique does allow us to actually try to do what many people say is impossible, which is to quantify styling.
Great. Well, this work that Garrett's working on is not the only paper that he's working on. He's also working on several other in the auto industry. For example, on advertising and a more general model of how advertising plays in. However, These models that we've been working on can be applied not only to this industry, but others. So, for example, we've been looking at the valuation of private labels in supermarkets, for example. So these are broadly applicable models that Garrett's been working on.